Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we got a little video for y'all, and we'll be talking about the, yes, drum roll, please, Detroit Pistons. So what is the expectation predictions I have? Well, before we get into that, I want to hear your predictions in the comment section. What do you guys expect from the Pistons? They brought in Trajan Langdon, fired Monty Williams, and brought in JB Bickerstaff. Cade Cunningham got the max. I love it. Pistons do look like they have a future heading in the right direction. They actually have competent basketball players surrounding Cade Cunningham, not a bunch of G League guys. So I'm excited. So what is my prediction for this season? Well, let's go ahead and look at their win-loss total. Again, in the comment section, let me hear your predictions. What do you guys expect from them? Hit this like and subscribe button for more content like this. And go check out my work at USA Today Sports, hoopshype.com. Now, as I said, what is currently their ranking per ESPN's win-loss? And they're 24 and a half games is what they're listed at. And I've said it in a couple other videos, but I think similarly what we saw the Utah Jazz do in the past previous seasons, I would not be surprised if the Pistons are competitive, and then as they get closer to the deadline, they trade people, or after the deadline All-Star break, they basically just start putting out really bad really bad lineups. Now, the Pistons' first-round pick is top 13 protected, and if it falls out of if it's 14 or above, it goes to the New York Knicks. So the Pistons are incentivized, to be a competent basketball team, but then at the end, just kind of like be at the end of the lottery. And that's a win. Honestly, Pistons fans, if they can be like pick 13 or 12 and like have a record that shows for it, they rather do that than just be this continuous and just lottery team, in my expectations. I don't know. I think that's how I would look at it as someone who isn't a Pistons fan. Now, what do I think of this team? What is the lineup that they're probably going to be running? Now, obviously, Cade Cunningham, Tobias Harris, and Jalen Duren are probably going to be starters. I wonder I think Jaden Ivey is going to start at the 2. Or do you put Malik Beasley at the 2? Or do you run Ivy, Malik at the 2 and 3, and then Cade at the 1, Harris at the 4, and then Duren at the 5? Or do you start Simone Fontecchio in Malik Beasley or Jaden Ivey's place, and then have the other play the 2 guard and the other play the 3? Then how do Ron Holland and Asar Thompson get minutes when they're both similar players? I think their 6th man is going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. unless Jaden Ivey comes off the bench and runs the second unit whenever Cade sits. I think Paul Reed could be a sneaky, decent player for them. Like, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by Paul Reed. Isaiah Stewart's another guy that I think is going to come off the bench or could get put in the starting lineup next to Tobias, and Tobias plays the 3, and Jalen stays at the 4, and Durham stays at the 5, and Stewart's the 4. And then you run Ivy or Beasley at the 2, and then obviously Cade at the 1. Outside of that, I think, Bobby Clement was a good pickup. I do love Danis Jenkins. I saw him at Portsmouth, solid player. I think Javonte McCoy and Deron Sebron are 2 solid guys who are going to, duke it out with, and I also like Tulu Smith from Port, but they're going to duke it out with Tosan and Danis Jenkins for the last 2-way, which if I had to choose, I would go with Tulu Smith. But outside of that, they got former Timberwolves first-round pick Wendell Moore, who I think is solid. And yeah, I think Marcus Sasser's another solid player who they have that I think, and there's a lot of guys on this team from like Simone Fontecchio, Marcus Sasser, Malik Beasley, Isaiah Stewart, maybe even Paul Reed if he plays well, that could generate attraction from contending teams when deadline comes around. And I would not be surprised if they're a team that, starts taking suitors, starts saying like, hey, we're interested in figuring something out. And because why wouldn't they be? They go ahead and they get themselves the guys that are going to be able to, be impact, or not impact, but like they could get the trade guys who, help them out. Like I said, Fontecchio, Stewart, and trade them to teams where they think those guys will be impact role players and they get compensated for it. But yeah, I think, they'll be playing good, showing Cade like, hey, look, this is what it looks like when you have weapons. Like it's not meaningless and hopeless. I've always said this story. I went and saw it during COVID. Cade Cunningham came to Kansas, obviously to play the Jayhawks, and I had season tickets, but the way they had set up the field house was that like there was only like 1,000 people in there and you could basically sit wherever you wanted. And I got to see Cade Cunningham up close, and he's arguably, if not the best, one of the best college basketball players I've ever seen. And I've said this before. I think Cade Cunningham also draft-wise, player-wise, he's the closest thing we've had to Luka Doncic since Luka Doncic came into the NBA. A 6'8" point wing who can play the 1, 2, 3, who can be a shot creator, could be a facilitator, solid rebounder, just has all the intangibles. And the one knock on him is, he's not an elite athlete. Okay, cool. He's still like a really solid basketball player who knows how to win. So, I don't know. That's where I look at that, and I want to hear your guys' opinions. What do you guys think, and do you guys agree with me that the Pistons are a team to keep an eye out for, as they will be, competitive? And I think JB Bickerstaff is a solid developmental coach who's going to teach these boys how to play defense. And defense is something that they need. Outside of that, I think it's crazy to think that, or it's crazy that what ended up being true was that Mr. Monty Williams did not want to be there, which is just wild in its own right, because Monty Williams seemingly got the bag from them. So that's always what I was saying, was like, I'm just so surprised that this ended up just not going into their favor. But I mean, it makes sense. I've talked about